This next example, you're given some pieces of information, and from it we need to pull out just a little bit more. It says for a class set of marks, the mean, or the average, is 75, and the variance is 64. So what we want to figure out is, well, what's the standard deviation? Okay, we know that standard deviation is the square root of the variance. So standard deviation is equal to the square root of the variance. Okay, so since the question tells us what the variance is, in this case 64, the standard deviation is the square root of 64. Okay, so standard deviation is actually 8. Okay, so 8 percentage points is the standard deviation of this particular class. Okay. Part B here says, what is the mark range in which students would be considered within one standard deviation of the mean? Okay, so in the example that we had with the dogs, for example, we had an average, okay, or a mean that was identified by the green line, and then the standard deviation was above and below that mark, okay, and then anything in between was considered one standard deviation inside of that particular data set. Okay, so in this instance, we know that the mean is 75. Okay, the average is 75. Okay, so 75 plus the standard deviation of 8, that gives us 83. Okay, that's on the top end. If we want to figure out the standard deviation on the lower end, we take the mean, the average, 75, minus 8, minus the standard deviation, and that's going to give us 67. Okay, so a mark within somewhere between 67 to 78, or sorry, 67 to 83 rather, is within one standard deviation of the mean. Okay, so what I would expect is about 2/3 of the class average to fall within that mark range. Okay, and that's one way that we can use standard deviation to determine how normal a mark range is relative to all of the other data points that we've got.